Imagine a society with no king, no emperor, no single ruler telling millions of people what to do. Sounds impossible, right? For the Igbo people of West Africa, it wasn't a theory. It was daily life for over 1,000 years. And the way they built it might be stranger and smarter than anything you learned about ancient civilizations in school. You've probably heard of pharaohs, emperors, and kings. Centralized power feels like the default setting for organizing a society, but the Igbo built something else entirely. They built a civilization on the idea that no single person should ever hold that much power. How do you even run a society like that? And how did it last so long? Long before European ships reached the coast of West Africa, the Igbo were already spread across the forests and river valleys of what is now southeastern Nigeria. Historian Elizabeth Isiche, who spent decades reconstructing Igbo history from oral tradition and archaeology, traced Igbo settlement in the region back over 1,000 years. This wasn't a young culture stumbling into contact with the wider world. It was old, layered, deeply rooted in its land, and it was decentralized almost by design. Anthropologist Victor Uchendu, who studied Igbo social structure in the 20th century, described a system built around the village and the age grade. Each village governed itself. Elders held authority through wisdom and lineage, not military conquest. Titles were earned, not inherited. A man could rise in status through hard work, wealth, or moral standing in the community. Status was a ladder, not a birthright. Does that sound familiar? It should. It's closer to how you choose your own friend groups, your own communities, your own sense of belonging today than any imperial court ever was. At the center of Igbo religious and political life sat something remarkable: the Oracle of Arachukwu. Communities from across the region sent disputes there for judgment. It functioned almost like a supreme court, except its authority came from spiritual reverence rather than armed force. No one needed to conquer you to make you listen. Belief did the work that swords did in other empires. Trade moved through this world constantly. Long before colonial roads and rail lines, Igbo traders carried yams, palm oil, iron tools, and textiles across a wide network stretching toward the Niger River and beyond. Anthropologist Simon Ottenberg, who conducted extensive fieldwork among Igbo communities in the mid-20th century, documented how markets rotated on a 4-day week, tied to Igbo cosmology itself. Each day had a name. Each day had meaning. Time wasn't just measured, it was sacred. Women held real economic power in this world too. Market women controlled significant trade routes and wealth. Some communities had parallel political structures. An Omu, or female authority figure who represented women's interests directly, independent of male chiefs. This wasn't a footnote in Igbo society. It was structural, built in from the start. You might be picturing something small and isolated. It wasn't. Some estimates place the pre-colonial Igbo population in the millions, spread across hundreds of autonomous village groups, all sharing language, religious practice, and cultural values, but never bowing to a single throne. Coordination without domination. Cooperation without conquest. How many societies in history can claim that? Religion wove through everything. The Igbo recognized a supreme deity, Chukwu, along with a vast array of spirits tied to the earth, rivers, and ancestors. The earth goddess, Allah, governed morality, fertility, and the land itself. Break a serious taboo, and you didn't just face social shame, you disturbed the spiritual order of the world. Justice wasn't only human, it was cosmic. Art and craftsmanship reached extraordinary heights too. At Igbo-Ukwu, archaeologists uncovered bronze objects dating back nearly 1,000 years, intricately cast using a lost wax technique so advanced that when it was first discovered in the 1930s, some researchers doubted it could be authentically local work. It was. The skill had simply been underestimated. Sound familiar? Then the ships came. European contact and later British colonization in the late 19th and early 20th centuries collided directly with everything Igbo society had built. The British were used to working through kings. They expected a chief to negotiate with, a throne to legitimize their rule through. The Igbo had no such single figure to hand them. So the British invented one. They appointed warrant chiefs, men given artificial authority they had never earned through the traditional system. Historian Don Ohadike documented how this collided violently with Igbo values, where leadership had to be earned through community respect, not granted by a foreign colonial office. The warrant chief system wasn't just administratively awkward, it was a direct assault on the logic that had held Igbo society together for centuries. The tension exploded in 1929 when thousands of Igbo women organized what colonial records called the Aba Women's War. They marched on warrant chiefs and colonial buildings, demanding an end to taxation and the imposition of foreign authority. It was one of the most significant anti-colonial uprisings in West African history, and it came from the very women whose economic and political power had always been part of the pre-colonial system. They weren't inventing resistance, they were defending something that already existed. Why does any of this matter to you now? Because the story we usually tell about pre-colonial Africa is incomplete. It's a story of kingdoms and empires, or nothing at all. But the Igbo prove there's a third option, a civilization built on distributed power, earned status, spiritual accountability, and economic participation across gender lines, existing for over 1,000 years before anyone in Europe wrote a word about it. You don't need a king to build order. You don't need a single ruler to hold a society together for a millennium. Sometimes the most resilient systems are the ones with no center at all, just thousands of small centers, all pointing the same direction. So imagine a society with no king, no emperor, no single ruler telling millions of people what to do. It's not a thought experiment. It already happened, and it lasted longer than most empires ever did.